In this lesson, we're going to learn how to enter a race event into the system. To begin with, select New Event. Here we will select the racetrack that we'll be competing at. If the track isn't already in the system, go ahead and use the Add New Racetrack button. Enter the name of the race event, the chassis that you'll be running. If the chassis isn't already in the system, go ahead and choose Add New Chassis, and the team that's going to be competing. You then have the option of selecting a race setup or going with a blank race setup. A blank race setup is going to give you a blank record for entering chassis information in. You'll need to go in and enter that if you want to keep track of what setup you had in the car when you began that event. We used the scaling option before, so we have a race setup that we want to select. So we're going to click that option. Here's the race setup that we have in the car. We got that information from when we did the scaling. So we're going to go ahead and select that. That brings us to an area where we can begin to enter data for our race event. This top area here is, we've got areas for entering weather information, the number of laps run, your best lap time, the fuel, the time that you were out on the track, and the type of session it was out on the track, whether it was practice qualifying. There's a list here that's built for you with different options in, but if you have something else that you want to enter into the system, go ahead and select Edit. And enter a new value. And go ahead and enter a new type of race session that you might have. Here you can go ahead and add a new type of race session. And click OK when you're done. Now that's now an option that's available to you. Down below, we're going to enter the tires that we have on the car when we're out on the track. All of the tire IDs that are available to you are in the system here for you to choose from. Down here, we're going to enter in the tires that we've got on the car when we go out on the track. Clicking the tire ID field will show you all of the different tires that you have in your inventory that are available for racing. Go ahead and select the tires that you have on the car. Then go ahead and enter any of the out sizes and pressures that you have for the car. When the car comes back in, and you've gathered, when the car comes back in, gather the size and pressure information and the tire temps as well as the brake temps that can all be entered into the system. Select the Update Stagger button to get the correct information to appear in the stagger fields. Enter your tire temps. Notice that they go in the order of outside, middle, inside for the left side of the car, inside, middle, outside for the right side of the car. It's also going to calculate the average it's also going to calculate the average temp of the tire. There's also an area for you to enter the brake temp for each side of the car. Because we selected a race setup when we began this race event, the chassis detail that we chose is the chassis detail from the race setup has been brought into this race event for us. We can view that by clicking on the chassis detail button. And here we can see what we had in the car when we went out on the track. When we come back here, we can go and create another session for, when we come back here, we can create another session for this. When we come back here, we can create another session for this race event. Do that by clicking the New Session button. That's going to bring over all of your information here regarding the race event. It's also going to bring over the tire numbers or the tire IDs for the tires that you have on the car. But it doesn't bring over any of that tire information, so we can enter new. It also carries along the chassis detail for us. If you make any adjustments to the car as you're out on the track, or if you make any adjustments to the car in between sessions, go ahead and make those reflections. If you make any changes to the car in between sessions, go ahead and enter that into the program here so you can know exactly what you have in the car every time you go out on the racetrack. As it is with this, you also notice here that this area of the program works similar to the scaling. When you make an adjustment and it is different than the previous set of, and it's different from the previous set of numbers that you've had in the system for that chassis. This area of the program works similar to the scaling portion. It's going to highlight any differences that you have in your chassis from one session on the track to the next. So here you can see a weight was changed, so that number has a yellow highlight. When you're done viewing the chassis data, go ahead and click Return to go back to the session. When you're done viewing the chassis detail information, click Return to go back to the session area. Here you can go and enter another practice round or maybe a heat race and enter the information pertaining to that. It's really important that you enter the number of laps that you've run because that is going to be carried over into the tires area of the table. It's really important that you enter the number of laps you've run because that information is going to be carried over into the tires area. That's where it's going to track how many laps you have on each tire so you know whether that's a tire you want to continue to use or not. The racing sessions portion of the program also provides you with an area to enter driver comments, crew chief comments, and overall comments on how well the car performed on the track for that session. You also have the option to print a summary of the whole race event. It's going to give you a summary of the tires, the tire information. It's going to give you a summary of the tire information and the chassis detail for each session that you were out on the track during that race event. Sometimes it's easier to just have this print out and to look at all of the information on paper versus trying to scroll through all of the screens.